Welcome back to More to the Story, the podcast all about writing, sharing, publishing your true personal stories, in particular books. I'm your host, Janna Maron. In addition to this podcast, I also publish a literary arts magazine called Under the Gum Tree, and I am also a book coach and editor for women writing nonfiction. You can find out about Under the Gum Tree at underthegumtree.com. There's information on subscribing and submitting there. We accept submissions ongoing, and we publish 4 times a year in digital and print. And you can find out more about my work as a book coach and editor with my company More to the Story at moretothestory.co. That is .co, not .com. And all the info about my group coaching, one-on-one individual coaching, my signature course, Nonfiction Bootcamp, all of that is available on that website. And I will probably say more about that toward the end. So thank you for being here. Thanks for listening. And welcome back. It is March 10th, I believe, is the date that this episode is going to release. I think last week when I was recording last week's episode, I said it was going to release on March 4th, and it really was March 3rd. And I was getting the Monday, Tuesday dates mixed up because I've started releasing podcast episodes on Mondays, but my weekly email newsletter always goes out on Tuesdays. And so far, the podcast episodes and the weekly email have been simpatico, I guess. We're talking about the same concept or idea in the email and in the podcast. And I feel like the podcast is just a little more casual, a little more breezy. It's a little bit more like you can hear me kind of like working through my thoughts and ideas. You can maybe get a sense of what it might be like to work with me if you and I were talking about a particular situation or an issue that you're facing. You could hear what it would sound like if I'm responding directly to you. And the emails are definitely much more polished, you know. I usually spend about a week or 2 writing each of those emails, doing a draft, revising, letting my husband is always my first reader. So Jeremy will read and give me any thoughts or comments. And he's a great person to have as my first reader and give me some input. Excuse me, had to take a sip of water. I'm already getting a little parched talking, and it's only been a few minutes. So today I wanted to talk about, I titled the episode and the subject of the email, which will go out tomorrow, there's no crying in self-promotion, which is maybe a little bit of a misnomer or misleading because obviously there is crying in self-promotion. I mean, especially for writers, I think it's probably one of our least favorite activities. In fact, I am in a little bit of an anomaly when it comes to writers, I believe, because I'm an extrovert and I like being in groups. I like being in front of an audience. I like talking. I like interacting with people. In fact, writing is very challenging for me because it is such an isolating activity, because it's so solitary. You have to sit and do it in front of your computer or in front of your notebook. You have to do it alone. And it's hard for me to be alone. I don't like to be alone. I prefer to have people around. I prefer to have in-person, face-to-face interactions. I prefer having somebody around to be like, hey, what do you think about this? Hey, can I read this sentence out loud to you like while I'm working on it? And my husband, Jeremy, has started working from home just in the last couple of months. And so he fills that role for me, thankfully. But years ago, when I first started freelancing, one of the other things that I did was participate in and start a co-working. I participated in the co-working movement in Sacramento where I live. And I was part of starting co-working spaces here for that very reason, because I went from working at a magazine where I was on staff with a creative team to working in isolation at home. And I was going crazy. I was going through withdrawals. And I was like, okay, this is not working for me. This is not how I like to work. I don't like being alone all day. So that was like a little side note to just emphasize the fact that even before this stage of life, when I have started my own business and I'm working from home and my husband is working from home now, and I have a little bit of company on a regular basis, sometimes he does have to go out and about and visit accounts and clients out in the field. But when he's at home, I get that fix. I get that little like back and forth, like, let me bounce an idea off of you. And we serve that and we do that for each other. So I know that most writers are not that way. Most writers are writers because they like being alone. They like being holed up in their office, away from people. They like the solidarity. They like the quiet. They like being able to refine their message. They like being able to really fine tune and choose their words carefully. And then, put them in front of a microphone like this, or an interview situation, or even on stage, where anytime you're speaking, yes, you can have a script. Yes, you can read a script, but there's always going to be some bit of impromptu ad lib happening. If there's a question or an interjection, you can't always predict what happens in real time when you're talking or interacting with people, whether it's a live audience in person or a broadcast or an interview one-on-one that's going to be recorded and shared later. I know most writers get really terrified of those type of things because they've spent most of their creative lives and their creative pursuits in their own room, right? In a room of their own, okay? And so when it comes to the idea of self-promotion or marketing or getting out there and being visible and talking about, this is what I have to offer, I want to share my work with you, it can be a little terrifying. And it can also feel like icky because it's the age-old saga or argument or conflict between art and commerce, right? And as soon as you start to make money off of your art, there are people who feel like that's a sellout because all of a sudden it's no longer pure. You're no longer doing it just for the pleasure of creating and expressing yourself. You're doing it for some sort of economic gain or economic return. And it can be, it's easy to believe and to perceive that money changes things when it comes to producing art. However, the writer's dream, most writers, a lot of writers dream of making a living from their writing. They dream of getting paid for their writing. So yes, there's this tension and we have to live in that tension, right? And the way that I do it is by making money from things other than my writing. And yes, eventually I would like to get to a point where I have books published and the books are selling. That's not my reality. Currently, I do have one book draft completed that I've been querying and seeking representation for, and I have another manuscript, I think, in progress. I kind of talked a little bit about that on a previous episode. But right now, those are not income generators for me. And so I make a living, I make money by doing the other kinds of work that I do with coaching and editing and supporting other writers in moving forward, making progress towards the goals that they have for themselves. But at some point, I would like to have my books published. At some point, I would like to sell my books. Yes. So yes, at some point, I would like to have my writing make money. But because I don't depend on that as a source of income, I can keep it separate. I can keep it separate while I am creating. So I feel like I personally do create from a place of desire and compulsion. A lot of writers feel compelled to write and share whatever it is they're writing about. And I do feel that I can hold on to that as long as I need to, because as I said, it's not something that I'm looking to create an income for myself. But it still is the dream, isn't it? That eventually someday we can get paid for our writing. And so where am I going with all of this? Well, it came to me, this idea of talking about this came to me last week or so, because I'm still getting used to the Substack platform, which is where I publish this podcast. So the podcast starts on Substack, and then it gets distributed to wherever you are interacting with it, whether that's on Spotify or Apple iTunes. Apple iTunes. It's called Apple Podcasts now. But the primary platform for the podcast is Substack. And if you're not familiar, it started out as a newsletter platform for writers. I mean, for anyone who wanted to write a newsletter. And a lot of writers flock to it early on because it's a free platform and you can use it for free. And the only you never have to pay for it. The way that the platform makes money is when creators using the platform make money. So you can have a paid subscription newsletter, and yes, the platform takes a cut of your subscription revenue if you charge for your publication. But that's the only way that the platform makes money, so they're not charging you to use it, and you can use it for free as long as you want. If you never turn on subscriptions, then you continue to use the platform for free. And when it first started, it was really newsletter focused, and that was the primary function of the platform. Well, now you can do things like post videos, post podcasts and audio, like I'm doing with this podcast. And they also have kind of a social integrate. We'll call it a feature. It's all integrated on the same platform, and it's basically like their version of Twitter, rest in peace, or Threads. It's a short posting feature of the platform called Notes. Okay, and because I'm still relatively new to Substack as a whole, part of what I'm doing is, yes, I'm here recording, publishing my podcast, seeing how this goes, just kind of like checking things out. And I will spend a little bit of time every week just kind of poking around and seeing how other people are using it. Like, what gets shared? What gets liked? What are people posting and sharing on Notes? What are people writing about and sharing in their publication posts as opposed to sharing in Notes and blah, 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 blah. Like, you know, whenever you're new to a platform, you got to spend some time kind of like getting your feet under you a little bit and figuring out what might work for you. And one of the ways to do that is to just pay attention to what other people are doing, right? So I was just kind of poking around, and the Notes feature is a separate feed. So you can have your inbox feed, basically, where anything you subscribe to, if you're using the app, either on the web or mobile, you have an inbox of all the new posts or from the publications that you subscribe to, and you can just kind of scroll through them all at once instead of having them in your email inbox, which is what I switched to because I was getting too many emails from Substack publications. And so there's a separate area in the app for your Notes feed, and you just are kind of like scrolling through it like you would in the old Twitter days or on Threads, if you're on Threads. And a note caught my eye, and the person was sharing an article and a quote from the article, and then her comment was, something along the lines of, this is maybe one of the saddest things I've ever read on Substack. And there were quite a few comments, and so I was like, oh, why is this sad? Like, it didn't connect to me between the quote that she shared and the idea of like being sad. So I didn't quite get it. So I was like, why is this sad? And so then I also noticed that there were quite a few comments and responses to this note. And so I clicked in to read what people were saying. And then I figured it out. I was like, oh, okay. The article that she was sharing which I will link in the post show notes for this episode. I'm not going to link the note and the thread because I'm not in the business of calling people out. But I will share the article that this thread was talking about and referring to. Because it was, I don't even remember the writer's name, but when you see the link, you can find it and know who the person is. He was writing an article about, let's see if I can bring in an approximation of the title. It was something like, I talked to 21 Substack bestsellers and discovered 7 strategies that most writers aren't using or don't know about, or something like that. And so this was basically a post about what the top performing publications on Substack do to grow and to increase their subscribers and to build community and to build a following. And then the note that was referencing this article generated this thread of people basically bitching and complaining about self-promotion. And several of the comments that I saw were things along the lines of, I just want to write. I just want to sit and write. I don't want to have to worry about how to grow my subscribers. I don't want to worry about self-promotion. And somebody else was talking about how, like, they don't want to see Substack being infiltrated by what they perceive to be these, like, LinkedIn self-promotion growth hacks. And I read all these comments and I just was like, seriously? Like, if you want people to read your writing, I'm confused. Why don't you want to share it? And why don't you want to let people know that it's available? And why don't you want to reach as many people as possible, or at the very least, reach the largest group of people who are going to resonate and be most interested in your writing? Why would you not want to reach them? And if you're not trying to reach people with your writing, I'm even more confused. Why are you on Substack? Why are you even using Substack? You could just write in a Google Doc and have the same experience without making it public. What is the purpose of making your writing public unless you want to share it with people? Unless you hope that your audience and your readers and people who really jive with what you have to say are going to find you. I'm confused. And also, you don't have to charge for your publication. It's perfectly fine for you to be on Substack with a free publication. You know, there's no requirement that you become a bestseller on Substack. The bestseller, by the way, is a designation for publications, I believe, that have 100 paid subscribers, and then they get a little like orange check mark next to their title, next to the name. So it's distinguishing the quote unquote bestsellers. The platform itself is distinguishing bestsellers from everyone else. So there's no requirement that you aim for bestseller status. There's no requirement that you even turn on paid subscribers. So I don't understand what the problem is. And it made me think of this experience that I had a couple years ago with a business coach that I was working with for a short time. Because listen, I can relate. I definitely relate to this idea that selling can feel icky. Especially when it's done in a very slimy, smarmy kind of way, and you feel like if you're on the receiving end and you feel like maybe you're being pressured, or you feel like somebody's trying to convince you and twist your arm and talk you into, first of all, spending money on something that you don't need, and then maybe that you don't even want, or maybe it's like money that you don't even have. Like, okay, I get it. And the flip side of that is, again, as I was saying, if you have something that could help others, and in this context, we're talking about the power of storytelling and how healing and transformative stories really can be. If you feel like, if you truly believe that your story could help someone heal, transform, feel less alone, or just be entertained and laugh, because we all need more of that in our lives right now, why would you not want to let people know about it? So the experience that I had with the business coach a couple years ago was specifically to help me with my own hangups around selling. Because here I am, I have my own business, so yeah, I have to sell. Like, if I want clients, if I want people to come work with me, if I want people to sign up for my group coaching, if I want people to buy my signature course, if I want people to benefit from what I have to offer, then yeah, I have to sell. And so I had some of my own hangups, and I still don't do it all perfectly. I still am not like 100% over it, because there are times when I do personally feel like, I don't want to do this. But guess what? I overcome that, because what I want more than not wanting to feel uncomfortable, what I want more is to help people and see them succeed and see them move toward their goal and their dream of writing and publishing a book. Really, I am on a mission to help as many women as I possibly can write the book that they need to write, tell the story that they need to tell, and yes, get published if that's what they want to do. My area of expertise is primarily focused on writing and finishing a book manuscript. And then, yes, we can talk about and work on figuring out the strategy for next steps, whatever those next steps are. They are different for every person, as I've said in the past. But so this business coach was helping me to overcome some of my own hangups regarding selling. And we were on a Zoom call. And so, I was sitting there kind of looking like this. I didn't have the big mic in front of me. But we were on a Zoom call, and I was wearing these glasses. If you're not watching the video, I've got my red glasses on, which I pretty much have on all the time when I'm on the computer. I wear contacts, but when I'm doing computer work, my eyes get pretty dry. So I do the glasses while I'm doing computer work. I also have blue light coating on the glasses, lenses, to help protect my eyes. So she says to me, "Oh my gosh, I love your glasses. Where did you get them?" And I said, "Oh, I use this website where you can buy glasses online. It's called Zenni." She's like, "Oh, just Zenni? Yeah, Zenni, Zenni.com. She's like, "Oh, I love that." And she's like, "Do they have, since you're ordering online, is there like a virtual try-on tool or something?" And I said, "Yeah, you can upload a photo or use the video virtual try-on feature." She's like, "Oh, awesome." And I said, "Yeah, actually really like them because the frames are relatively inexpensive. And so it's a way for me to be able to have multiple styles of frames without feeling like I'm spending hundreds of dollars on all these different glasses." Which is true. I have like 3 or 4 pair of glasses, but then what happens? I end up wearing the red ones all the time because I like them so much. And, especially online, it's kind of become a little bit of a signature look for me. And so she's like, "Oh, that's really great. That's really great to know." Then she goes, "You just sold me on Zenni. I'm going to go buy glasses. I'm now going to go buy glasses from Zenni." And she says, and that is how easy selling can be. It's as easy as making a recommendation to a friend for something that they need or can solve a problem that they have, or something even that they just want. Okay, so when I saw this thread of all these people bitching and moaning about, articles about how to grow your Substack and how they just want to write and they don't want to have to worry about self-promotion. This is exactly what I thought of. I thought of recommending to somebody who I know and like where they can get inexpensive glasses. Why would you not help someone you know and like when you have information, when you have a story, when your writing could help someone else? Why would you not share it? Why would you not want to get it out there? Why would you not want to spread the word? And I get it. It's an activity that feels counterintuitive. It's an activity that feels like it's maybe taking time and attention away from the work that you really want to be doing as a writer. But look, if you want to get published, if you want to get paid for your writing, yeah, you're going to have to do a little bit of self-promotion. And don't bemoan, don't begrudge others who are trying to help you figure out the best way, the most effective way to have success in that area. It just doesn't make sense to me at all. So that's a little bit of a rant for today. I will challenge you. I will leave you with this. I will challenge you with the idea that if this is something that you struggle with, if this is something that makes you feel icky, can you, in the next week, like between now and the next episode, can you find a way to share about your work in a way that is as simple as me telling somebody where I got my glasses? Just think about it in those terms. You're having a conversation, you see something online, and you just say to yourself, oh, I have something that is relevant and would be helpful. Let me tell you about it. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no harm in that. In fact, if it's coming from that true, genuine place of wanting to help, I bet you it's going to be received, and the person is going to be grateful for it. The person is going to be glad that you shared it. Okay, so this is not going to get into tactics and strategies for self-promotion. No. This is simply about how can you reframe your perception of doing the activities of self-promotion so that it makes sense for you. But not only does it make sense for you, it feels easier and it feels more authentic to you and who you are. Because, man, if you're writing and you're compelled to write, and especially if you're listening to this and you're a woman writing true personal stories, those are primarily the clients that I work with. Women in particular have a really hard, I'm preaching to the choir, you know this, women in particular have a really hard time using their voice, standing up and being heard. So it's a powerful act that you are first even taking the time to spend the energy and attention on writing and getting your story onto paper and crafting it and shaping it. That's the first phase of using your voice, because the second phase of using your voice is letting people know that this story actually exists and that it can help them, that it can benefit them, that there is value in reading what you have to say because it's going to impact their life. It's going to make a change. It's going to help them in some way. So go out there and tell your friends where to buy red glasses. That's it. Your work is the red glasses, and the link that you share to the work or the invitation to sign up for your Substack or whatever it is that you have to offer, that's where they can get it. So I want you to think about it in those terms. All you're doing is telling your friends where they can buy red glasses. Okay, that's all I have for you today. I want to remind you that you can check out my signature digital video course, Nonfiction Bootcamp, if you go to moretothestory.co/NBDIY. There's an option for video course only, but there is also an option for the video course plus coaching, so check that out. If you're not quite ready for the full video course, check out my masterclass, which is only $27 for unlimited access. You can watch and rewatch it anytime, as many times as you want. That is at moretothestory.co/masterclass. $27. Get an overview of the framework that I use to work with my clients. In fact, I think I need to do a series of episodes on the framework. Coming soon to More to the Story. The More to the Story framework for finally writing and finishing your nonfiction book. All right, my friends, you can follow me on Instagram at Janna Maron. You can follow Under the Gumtree on Instagram at Under Gumtree. If you are going to be in Palm Springs for Alt Summit, March 14th to March 17th, look for me on Friday night at the gifting party. I also just got the notification that I'm going to be hosting a meetup for authors and aspiring authors on Sunday night. So if you're going to be in Palm Springs, if you're going to the conference, look me up. I'll be there giving away magazines, back issues of Under the Gumtree. And if you're going to be in LA at the end of March, March 26th, 27th to the 29th, look for me at booth 1213 with Under the Gumtree. We're also hosting an offsite reading event on Friday, March 28th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Bonaventure Brewing. And that is in partnership with 3 other nonfiction publications, Fourth Genre, River Teeth, Hippocampus Magazine. Very excited. It's the highlight of the conference for me. It's the only nonfiction event, exclusive nonfiction event of the conference. We usually have 100 or more folks come out, and it's going to be the Bonaventure Brewing has a rooftop, which is where we're going to be. So it's going to be a rooftop reading in LA, like downtown LA. How swanky are we? Not very when it's a bunch of nerdy writers gathering, but hey, the drinks will be flowing, as you know is the case for writers when we all get together. Okay, I'm going to stop. Hope to see you at some of those events. Hope to see you online on the Instagram. Hope to see you in the comments. Head on over to Substack. Leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts. Leave questions. Any questions that I get, I will address in future episodes. And thank you so much for listening. Oh, before I forget, the theme song was written and produced and performed by my husband, Janna Maron. He is on Instagram at Existential Wine Guy. You can follow him there if you're into wine. And now I'm going to stop. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks for listening. Talk to you soon on the next episode of More to the Story.